welcome to day 2 of the New Homes in New Ways Summit. Welcome back to many of you who attended yesterday, and welcome to those who are joining us for the first time today. We've got a packed agenda for you today. I just want to reflect on yesterday a little bit to recognise the scale of the challenge we have in terms of solving the housing crisis. We need to move 120,000 people out of temporary accommodation. That includes 159,000 children. It's a huge challenge. I think we all agree, as an advanced, high-income nation, nobody should be homeless. So we have an obligation to try and solve this situation. As many of the speakers emphasised yesterday, it's not about just delivering homes, it's about creating hope, stability, and a future for families who need it now. For me, there was lots of positive takeaways from yesterday. I think the big one is that we have the know-how, we have the technology to deliver high-quality housing, and indeed the approaches to facilitate the delivery of those homes. It's great that government and new administration are talking about housing. There's been a raft of announcements made this week, but moreover it needs to be a collective approach from all of us in the industry to deliver at scale. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to stop working in silos. We need to collaborate together. We need to think about standardisation. We need to look at aggregating demand and planning. Planning is a huge issue. But also we need to inform and educate the housing commissioners. I think one of the other big things for me that sort of came out is we need to remember every region is experiencing the same problems and having the same challenges. So we need to share and learn from the successes, but also from the failures. That's very important. And I think yesterday there was great energy amongst you, and I think we were looking at those solutions and how we overcome those. And I'm sure the sessions today are going to be similar. So thank you for your involvement. To start proceedings today, I'm delighted that we have Lord Best with us. He's a true champion of better homes and better communities. Lord Best is an independent crossbench member of the House of Lords with a special interest in housing. His dedication to housing, social justice and modern methods of construction has left an indelible mark on the built environment. He's a tireless advocate for better housing policies, sustainable development and modern methods of construction. As a crossbench member of the House of Lords, he's been instrumental in shaping policies, addressing the pressing housing challenges, and particularly on affordable social housing and his use of modern methods of construction. He's got a career spanning decades, I hope you don't mind me saying that. And Lord Best has led and contributed to numerous organisations focused on improving housing delivery. He's served as the Chief Executive of the National HousingFederation and the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, where he championed social justice and housing research. His expertise has been invaluable in steering government thinking towards more sustainable and inclusive housing solutions. There will be a Q&A afterwards, so do think about those questions you'd like to ask. But for now, can you join me for welcoming Lord Best?
Thank you, John. That was such a long introduction. I think it's time to give you a speech as well. It's a bonus, getting a speech. So, New Homes in New Ways. Yeah. we need plenty of that. I think you've had spelt out the level of the housing crisis. I won't do all those statistics again. Well, I'll do one or two of those statistics again, because they're worth, anyone who wasn't here yesterday and didn't pick them up. But 139,000 children are in temporary accommodation, which isn't only bad for the children and for the families that are trying to look after them, get them to school and do all the things you can do as a family out of temporary accommodation. It's also bad for the rest of us, because it's costing £2 billion a year to put people and keep people in temporary accommodation. It's outrageous, really, and getting worse. The Public Accounts Committee had a go at this. I'm going to say, did all of you read the report of the public? I don't think anybody's ever read a report from the Public Accounts Committee, but it was rather a good report, about a fortnight ago. And among the extra statistics I harvested from this report was that there are 6,000 families in bed and breakfast accommodation, which is really the end of the line. Sounds rather nice, doesn't it? But it sounds like sort of the North York Moors or something. But these are really crummy places to live and try and keep a family together. 6,000 families there, of which 4,000 have been there more than 6 weeks. And 6 weeks is the margin that local authorities, after which they're meant to find somewhere permanent, or at least not in a hotel, and they're not. It's not working. And these really are little bits at the top of the iceberg. Below that is all of the stress and strain of there not being enough homes to go round. There's just not enough to go round. Not enough that is affordable to the people who need the homes. So I thought the exhibition was great. If anybody hasn't had a look round, it's really good. And I'm going to say something about MMC. I gather that my colleague, Lord Moylan, spoke about this yesterday. Lord Moylan doesn't speak for all of us, I have to tell you. Those of you. I don't think he even speaks for himself sometimes. Is a provocateur, let's put it like that. But we did have this inquiry which he chaired on MMC, and I'm going to have a look at that. Just wanted to say well done on this exhibition, and indeed this initiative coming out of the Housing Festival in Bristol. I was hearing all about that, and using the small sites task force. What a great idea. Make more use of these small infill sites, partly for the meantime MMC products like the Waits roll-along house, which has now appeared miraculously outside the building. So sometimes for the long term, small sites that are neglected, often owned by the council. I once did a commission for Westminster City Council, and I went round with the guy in charge of maintenance for Westminster Council, looking at sites that he had identified. You could do something here, you could do something over here. We used to have a bus depot here, but the buses are all gone, and there's over an acre, and it's just been growing weeds. The guy himself knew, but the bosses, this is too small fry. This was off the screen. There's loads and loads of bits and pieces of land that can be made really productive and useful. Great idea to have a small sites task force and some big guns behind it. Stephen Peacock, Chief Executive of the West of England Combined Authority, alongside Charlie Nunn, the Chief Executive Officer of Lloyd's. This gives credibility in all circles when people of that seniority are engaged. So great stuff. Get some private finance together and get cheap land, and you don't have to go and do everything in the greenfield sites out of town, where you've got a lot of transport problems and a lot of a different set of issues. Let's use those small sites. Great idea. Wanted to just get that in as a word of congratulation. So, are we going to get our 1.5 million homes in the life of this Parliament? Are we going to achieve the government's ambitions? These are tough times for those who want to get things done. Interest rates, cost of money is a very significant factor in social housing and in the private rented sector. We're expected now to achieve higher standards. We've got the future homes coming down the line. Got accessibility standards, all good stuff. Raising standards, must do it, but it costs money and it affects the viability of schemes. Within the social housing sector, there's been this big switch from thinking all the time about new development, about what we're going to do next, to thinking more about what they've already got. the sector has turned quite rightly in on itself and is now spending time and energy making sure that the stock of housing that it's got, some of it inherited from local authorities of the eras when we didn't do so well, the 1960s and 1970s, some of this stuff is rubbish. And we've got to attend to it and look after the people and the properties that the social sector already owns. But that is distracting and taking away the energy that was going to developing new homes, and this is making a difference. And government is chasing it up. The social housing regulator has got new teeth. We have Awab's law requiring people to fix mould and cold faster, with some really possibly unrealistically fast timescales, but pressure on the housing associations, the RPs, the registered providers, to get on with looking after what they've got and not attending to the 1.5 million homes that government is so keen for us to build. So there are gloomy clouds around trying to achieve these sort of numbers, but well, first of all, government is working on a national housing strategy because you need to know where you're going. You need a strategy, a framework within which to put your 1.5 million and all the other things, retrofitting the existing stock. You need a strategy. I met with the team for the second time yesterday, the National Housing Strategy team of people at MHCLG, some very good people devoting their time. There's a proper team of people working on the National Housing Strategy. We should get that in the spring. The spring in government terms is July, incidentally. we should get it in July, and that's a starting point. But then government has been putting its money where its mouth is, which that's always the real test. There was another 500 million for social housing in the October autumn statement. That was extremely welcome and keeps the boat afloat. But then this week we've had another 300 million. I wasn't expecting that. Another 300 million government has conjured up. They're shaking that magic money tree furiously. So another 300 million to keep things going. That's for the affordable housing programme of the social housing providers. But there was also 50 million. People don't get their heads quite around this, so they don't quite, I think, see the significance. But there was a £50 million injection to what's called the Local Authority Housing Fund. And this is a really important little ingredient in the mix, which gets overlooked and forgotten. And what it is, this is the funding of local authorities using, if they wish, an agency, including a housing association, but to buy existing properties, modernise them and use them in place of temporary accommodation or other homelessness categories. Buy the houses, get them into the social housing sector, out of the private sector, into the social sector in one jump. This is the fastest way. We're not going to house those 139,000 children in a hurry if we're waiting for new bill to be accomplished in the years ahead. We've got to get on with it now. And the 50 million local authority housing fund extra, that's really quite potent news. It isn't enough to take you very far, but it gets you on the road and it gets government used to the idea that this is a stream of funding that's worth doing, buying the existing stock. We've got the Renters' Rights Bill at the moment in the House of Lords. And this is the one that gives more rights to tenants and absolutely requires private landlords to do things they don't want to do. It gets rid of the no-fault evictions, which is what it's famous for, but it also includes a decent home standard for private landlords. It's going to require some serious spending by those landlords. It comes to them on top of the requirement for minimum energy efficiency standards, the MEES, getting everything up to EPC-C. In the private rented sector. These are quite tough asks on small-time landlords who haven't got any money. And I think we're going to see a diminution in the stock of private renting. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing, because the sector has doubled in size. It's got twice as big as it was in the year 2002, where it's still at twice the size, about 20%, 19% of the stock of the nation. And it can't cope. The private rented sector can't cope with providing long-term security, low rents and quality homes for people on low incomes. It's just not suited to that. It may be great for young mobile professionals, but it's not suited to do the job that social housing was set up to do. And so I think that these pressures on the private rented sector, which are absolutely necessary, because the sector is in a mess. There are some awful properties, and there are some rogues. They may be a minority and all that, but there are rogues, and we've got to get rid of them. So there will be pressure on the sector, and that is likely to mean quite a few more landlords selling up, getting out of the business. And so be it. The sector had grown too far, in my view, but we do need to replace that loss, because that at the moment is an essential part of the equation. And the fastest way to replace it is to buy the properties of the landlords that are getting out. What I proposed in the House of Lords last week, I think it was last week, was that there would be capital gains tax relief if you sell your property as a private landlord to a housing association, to a registered provider. This means that you're going to favour selling it in that direction, and that'll give a clearer run to the housing associations and indeed to councils to buy and convert, because that's the fastest way we could get people housed within that sector. So, in terms of the reasons to be cheerful in the days and months ahead, yes, I didn't even know we were going to have a housing week. I'm not sure that MHCLG knew it until the last minute, but they've got enough announcements to make this housing week, and we're in the middle of housing week, and we are getting some positive news, not just about grant levels, but about the new towns. I don't know if you saw, there's been 100 places that have put in a bid for 10,000 plus a new town. Great stuff. Starmer now getting behind this, saying that the Prince of Wales, as he was when he did Poundbury and Nansleeden, now the King is in favour of good placemaking, and we're going to use Poundbury and Nansleeden, these other places that King Charles has put his imprimatur on as models. But this is great stuff. This is a real interest in placemaking, in making places that are not just a bunch of homes, but have all the amenities and facilities and the green spaces, the cycle paths and the rest of it. So this week we are getting lots of positive vibes. And part of that, I noticed Angela Rayner started it and Starmer was talking about it yesterday, the skills shortage. We all agree who's on earth is going to build all these homes. I'm going to come to MMC in a minute, but we are going to need a skilled workforce, and they're up for understanding that the new Skills England, the new overarching body that is going to try and get a flow of people through apprenticeships and training, are there and ready. They're on the case, and they are willing to give that priority. So, positive stuff at the back of this week, and although I've said for some time that I think the 1.5 million is a great aspiration and we should definitely aim for it, that I didn't think we would actually be likely to make it, the chances of getting to 1.5 million new homes has improved at the end of this week. I think it's that much nearer to fruition. So comments on MMC, on modern methods of construction, and then some comments on who is going to do the development that is needed in the future. Comments on MMC. Well, Daniel Moyland has told you that we had a very interesting inquiry. The trouble was that the people who came and told us the wonderful things they were doing seemed to go bankrupt the week or two later. Awful lot of misery in the industry just at the time when we were looking at and looking optimistically at the need for MMC. The first point is that we have got to have modern methods of construction. There isn't any question about it. We'll never, ever, no chance at all of getting to the 1.5 million just using the labour force, the declining labour force that we got at the moment. We have to use some modern methods of construction. That is for sure. But the industry has been suffering of late, and the confidence in the industry has I won't say evaporated, but it has taken quite a knock. I've chaired a housing association. I've chaired 2 or 3 housing associations, and I've been chief executive of a housing association along that long career path back to the 1880s that was being described earlier. But in those capacities, I can see how the decision-making takes place. And if you are going to go for a Category 1 provider of MMC, this is the all-singing, all-dancing modular construction, bring it on, do the whole thing for you. If you're to commission that, you have to be absolutely certain that nothing is going to go wrong, because if this company goes bust or gets into financial difficulties halfway through your development, there is no what we call interoperability. There's no chance of switching to somebody else because that's unique to that particular firm. I wouldn't take the risk, public money and so on, but just the hassle of things are going to go wrong. If you're going for the complete solution, the modular construction, the Category 1. So I think that the prizes are going to go to Category 2 and 3 and 4. The bottom end of these categories begin to be the kind of bog standard. We're back to where we started. But in that middle band, there's some real improvements. And of course, the full modular stuff can still do for those wonderful meantime sites for coming and bringing the pod above the car park. That was Z pods, and the weights roll along things. Those, I'm sure, for the meantime sites, but for a massive development, for an awful lot of the 1.5 million, it's not, I don't think, going to be Category 1 unless we could be absolutely sure that the companies were rock solid and going to survive and not, I'm afraid, suffer from the lack of confidence that now is in the air. The trick, I think, in terms of getting that steady pipeline of development, which is what the essential thing is. If you build a great big factory, you've got to have people buying at the end of it, and that needs to be assured, and you can't do that on spec and have a stop-start. You've got to have a flow-through that keeps going, and the one way, at any rate, of trying to get that assurance is to insist that the public sector, that the funded affordable housing programme, which does require a percentage of new homes for all of the RPs, the registered providers that are in partnership with Homes England, it does, and the GLA, they are required to do a proportion of their homes using MMC construction techniques. We want to see Homes England and the GLA making that, being insistent on that, perhaps being a bit more specific about the categories that they're talking about, because this can mean sort of Category 7 and 8 if you're not careful. So we want to be in those middle bunch of categories of MMC, but that means that you get a surety that at least that stream out of the total is going to keep coming and keep providing the demand alongside the supply that comes out of the end of the factory. So I think that's an important ingredient in the mix. The other thing is that when we have the Future Home Standard, we're going to get a new standard. Government is busy consulting. This has been a long-winded process. But the Future Home Standard, which is about sustainability, in fact, you can only achieve some of the Future Home Standards specification if you use modern methods of construction, because it is so difficult with the old-fashioned brick and block and people on site to be sure that you are going to get that fitness, that tightness, that well-insulated product that you need. So insisting on future home standards when we get them and when we're sure exactly what they look like, and I hope they will be important new standards and they will make a difference in their own right. But one of the differences they will make is requiring a lot more people to take MMC seriously, because that'll be the only way that you'll be able to achieve those new standards. And finally, I think on MMC, the skills issue is a real one. We've got to get training up for people right across the industry. This applies in the retrofit world as well. Just a little anecdote. We have a thing at home called HomeServe. I don't know if anybody uses HomeServe. I'm not absolutely sure how good HomeServe is, but it's a thing if you have a burst pipe or whatever, the emergency services come and you haven't got all the hassle of trying to find someone. But the guy that came and unblocked our loo has on the back of his T-shirt, a new boiler, ? Ask me. So I said, what about a heat pump? Ground source, air source, heat pump. What can you do about that if I ask you? He said, oh, I don't think we do those. Home Serve is a huge national company, and yet they're not into anything. Oh, no, we can't do that. We'll sell you an old-fashioned boiler, brand new. But this across the industry, there is this reluctance, and it spreads to the training, therefore, and the apprenticeships. We're not getting the skilled people working through because the industry itself is not taking seriously enough the need to modernize and get with some of the new techniques. So I think we were hearing both Angela Rayner and Starmer both talking about skill building and using the new Skills England for that purpose. The other thing I wanted to just share with you was a view on the who is going to do all this building of the future. We have relied upon the volume house builders. I'm sure they're well represented here today. Well done. But the volume house builders have not managed to achieve almost any of the things that we have required of them. We need speed. And it's no good going on blaming the planning system. I should have said, in terms of the good news, in terms of the reasons to be cheerful, government is certainly seized to the fact that we need to speed up the planning process, because we all agree. If there's nobody in the building, there's nobody to say yes. And we need to resource planning and make things happen. And that's partly to do with reorganising local government, but it's partly to do with just resourcing the teams that are there or should be there, but have found it very difficult to sustain a staffing that can do the job. I've just finished doing in the autumn of last year, I finished doing a commission for the local authorities in Devon. There are 10 planning authorities in Devon. Devon isn't that big a place. There are 10 planning authorities, 8 district councils, one unitary, and the county has planning responsibilities as well. So there are 10, and they're all supposedly well stocked with brilliant planners. Of course they're not. There's nobody there. Nobody can recruit and retain all the planners that you would require. Well, Devon, I suspect, will become a combined, or chunks of it, combined county authority, and we will consolidate this and make life a bit easier. This is part of the process of the streamlining of the system, and partly it is about resourcing. Local authorities will be allowed to charge fees that actually cover the full cost of providing the service, which is an obvious thing for them to do, but they haven't been able to in the past, so it's led to the cuts in the services. We are seeing changes that will speed up the planning process, and that's an important part of it. But the house builders can't hide behind that entirely. We know from Oliver Letwin's famous report in 2018. Now, here is a report, unlike the Public Accounts Committee reports, but here's a report that's well worth reading. This is Oliver Letwin, then the sort of thinking person in government, who was asked to find out why build-out rates are so slow and how we could get things actually built in this country. And he says planning needs fixing. He says that. But he also says that reliance on the house builders and their business model is doomed. This is never going to get you what you want. The house builders will always go at the speed of selling, of the absorption by the market, as they say. And this is always at a dreary, really slow pace. We're never going to get things done if we depend, in terms of speed, on the house builders. We also have not been reliably served by the house builders in terms of quality as well as quantity. And they haven't been recruiting the skilled staff and training the skilled staff, have they? Nor have they been into innovation in terms of building techniques. The house builders have let us down. We need to not be dependent for them to bring forward all the bright ideas. We need another instrument to do it. And we have it already within our reach, because for the new towns, there will be new town development corporations. These will have planning powers, CPO powers. They will have a master plan for the area, and they will then parcel out the sites, having acquired the land at a residual land value. That's a land value that takes into account the fact that it's going to have green spaces, that it's going to have facilities, amenities, it's going to have affordable housing, it's going to have older people's housing, all the things that are going to be needed. It's the residual value at the end of that, not the ridiculous prices that we have been paying of late for the land. This giving you the margin then to do all those good things. You have your master plan, you have your acquisition at a price that makes all the good things possible, and you parcel out the sites to the developers, to the housing associations, to the old people's specialist providers, to student accommodation, all the things that you need, and use the proceeds that are left over for all of the good stuff that in terms of the green spaces and the layout. This model, the development corporation model, we want to apply not just to 10,000 home new towns. We want to apply the development corporation model to every major development. Anything, I would say, 500 homes. It's still there's a lot of people in the space. You need a master plan, even for 500 homes. You need to parcel out to the different players and get them building at the same time. Oliver Letwin said the build-out rates would be doubled or trebled however many other players there are on the site. If you just have the one major developer plodding along year after year, it's going to take forever. Put the others in at the beginning. So anyway, development corporations, can I leave you with the thought that this is a better way of doing things, and we're going to get into practice this as the new town momentum builds up. So MMC for the what we're going to build, and development corporations for the who's going to do it. And I think we should be rather more optimistic than we have been of late. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you, Lord Best. Very interesting and very positive, I think everybody would agree, which is extremely important. And I like your belief that there is a national strategy being put in place by government. Yeah. Because we need it. We certainly do need it. Can I open it up to the audience in terms of any questions they may have? Just say who you are.
Yeah, John Spencer, Envision. Lord Best, all those points are fantastic to get everything going, but is there another opportunity on the Section 106? Because house builders, which have got a name, they're not building the 106s because it costing too much for the registered providers. So that's a bit of a block in the system. Is there something we could ease?
Right. So probably nearly everybody's familiar with the system. The house builder has as a condition of planning to produce a certain amount of affordable housing under Section 1, and maybe other things as well, but primarily a chunk of affordable housing. But the RPs, the registered providers, the housing associations, are not at the moment keen to take on some of those Section 106 commitments. They don't want to pay the price. My sympathies are not entirely with the house builders, because the price that they're expecting to get for the site hasn't taken into account the fact that the world has changed, that there are now higher interest rates for the housing associations to pay. There are higher bill costs. So what worked before doesn't work now. So they're not going to get the same price. But once again, though, a system which depends upon the house builders taking the lead, doing the job, and the RPs falling in line and buying from them, not always a product of the highest quality at that rate. This I would trade in for my model of having a development corporation handling the whole development and ensuring that the affordable housing then can happen.
Yes. Thank you.
Lord Best, Mike Diath from HTA Design. You kindly wrote forward for my report, Making a Place for Low-Cost Housing, in 2013. I'm now a granddad. And it's really interesting now being a granddad. You start thinking in different terms about the future. So it's really good to hear your positivity. And I'm definitely of the mind that we are in a place where we can now make a difference with a government that means it. It does feel as though the government means it. However, there are some unintended consequences that continue to trip us up. One of them is the Building Safety Act, which is well-intentioned, of course, but it's causing such huge delays on the delivery of homes in our towns and cities. Are you seeing any sort of thoughts from government about how they can smooth that process at all?
Well, you're quite right, Mike. In my list of the negatives, I should have included building safety and the fallout. Is it 7 years since Grenfell now? Seven years. And this fallout, we still haven't bottomed this, have we? But Angela Rayner said that this is a priority for government. They're going to try and get to grips with it. I think keep the pressure up. But it is a big negative. It's a phenomenon that hasn't hit social housing evenly across the country. London is, of course, seriously affected, and some of the other big cities, but not everybody is feeling the pain. But where they are, it's serious, and I quite agree. We have to be subsidised out of the problem. There isn't a shortcut.
Thank you.
Hi, Lord Best. Gonzalo Marcassini from RentCap, a property technology company. You mentioned about increasing the workforce and the government putting more money for more planners and other people in the public sector. My thinking is not just about increasing the workforce, but also digitizing the existing workforce. There's a lot of great work being done by Ministry of Housing, demonstrating prop tech solutions, and now the government's push with AI. We should be able to also help the existing workforce, so planners, development managers in local authorities, to do what one person used to do. Now they can do about 10 people's worth of work. So can we digitize and increase efficiencies as well as increasing the workforce, but actually digitizing the existing workforce to do way more? What's the government's view of that?
I'm absolutely sure we can, but I'm going to rely on you and others
That's government solutions.
Yeah. But
the challenge with that is digitizing in public sector. There's a lot of challenges with a startup trying to work into that sector. Procurement, getting in front of the right people. The Ministry of Housing are starting to do that, and they've done so in the last few years, but it's been very slow. And it's how can we kind of accelerate that to be able to help the existing workforce to do way more than they currently are doing.
Right. You need one minister within the department who's seized of the opportunities, who can run with it. And that will be a new and young minister who's got the imagination and perhaps a bit of skilled understanding. But yeah, no, absolutely. Just in passing, I asked DeepSeek to write a speech for me the other day. I gave it quite a lot of specific instructions. It took about 19 seconds to write my House of Lords speech. The future is out there. And harvesting it, this is going to be a great and important challenge.
Do you have a recommendation of who that minister might be?
I wish I could.
On the spot.
Wish I could.
Hello, my name's Alice Brown. I've got a question about funding of local authorities. You touched on this, but the fact is that local authorities can't really deliver on repairing their own stock. They're extremely stretched. They're having to sell buildings because they can't afford to maintain them. So I think, providing more funding for local authorities to enable them to build social homes is critical, and I don't really think that the 500 million is going to go very far. One estate regen costs more than that. What is being done? What is being done to get more funding to local authorities, please?
Local authorities were badly hit by their rent levels being curbed. We went backwards, you remember. I think it was Margaret Beckett was the minister at the time, when we had to reduce rents by 1% in real terms per annum. Never get that rental back again. And local authorities need to have really a restocking of that lost finance for those years. I think it's something like 700, 800 million would be enough to just even things out so that the existing rent roll in the housing revenue account will continue to pay for maintenance and ongoing upkeep. And then one can think separately about the new build and the development of the future. Borrowing, don't forget, alongside the 500 million, one should be able to borrow twice as much. So that's $1 billion of private finance alongside the 500 million, because there will be a return from rental income when those 500 million worth of subsidised housing appears. But yes, no, it's obviously 500 million is not enough. These are interim payments, 500 and then another 300 last week. I'm giving them the credit for that. It's the affordable housing programme, which starts in 2026. That we don't know what level that's going to be. We just hope that these are indicators that it's going to be good news.
Thank you. Is it one final question? Sorry? Thank you.
Thank you, and so refreshing to hear from somebody who really understands the need for housing, so thank you for that. I think one thing you touched on around having a national strategy and a national plan is around the leadership we heard. And we heard yesterday from Paul Tierney from Ireland and the Ireland MMC programme, really positive about how they tackled that. But it was very, very clear. It was, you know, being driven by a really clear shared strategy and a will. We had a speaker yesterday, Dr. William Bird, who said, we didn't solve the issues around smoking by waiting for, you know, the population to solve it. Actually, we did have to intervene and do something. Do you think we are really going to see that really strong leadership that we need to get behind this now, you know, in the next few months from government?
Yeah. Well, there are some good signs. And the Prime Minister is ready to take on those that oppose these bold plans that we're now getting, and is making quite a song and dance about how prepared he is, and therefore his colleagues are, to take on the powers of darkness, those that will oppose whatever, and isn't afraid to come out fighting, you know, with the blockers and the NIMBYs getting a hard time, and this is the first time in decades that they have. So, you know, this is robust stuff. I'm hopeful.
Lovely. Well, thank you, Lord Best. Really insightful, really informative, and again, it's great to have someone that's really banging the drum and pushing things forward. So, can we again just give Lord Best a thank you?